In this video, I am breaking down the 6 stages of a feminine business based on 15 years in entrepreneurship and having swung the pendulum in so many different directions. It's also based on having trained almost 3,000 people through our training programs and digital products over the years and noticing a lot of patterns and, of course, my own personal growth journey. So, hi, my name is Amanda Abella. Welcome to Mindful Success Path. On this channel, we talk to high achievers and high performers and some business owners all about how to achieve the results that they're looking for without all the extra stress and drama. So if that is something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because on this channel we're covering meditation, spirituality, neuroscience, psychology, and really getting your brain on board with what it is that you want to create. And if you want to take what I'm going to be talking about in this video a step further, I actually go a lot deeper into a lot of these stages. In our money mindset training, I go deeper into these stages, and in addition to that, I start teaching you a process for rewiring your brain for more abundance in your life. But understanding these 6 stages of a feminine business is the first place to start, and you can find the information for that below. The first stage of a more feminine business is what I call the basic biatch stage. You can also call her Basic Betty if you want to, if you don't like the curse words. And what you're going to find in a lot of these stages is, in this case, I'm talking about it specifically for business, but these are also stages of personal growth in a lot of ways. And also, I have shown this to men, and they relate to it as well, because in actuality, you need feminine and masculine to make money. But since I've had a predominantly female audience for a decade, this is how I came up with this. So stage 1 is Basic Biatch, or if you want the clean word version, Basic Betty. Basic Betty is basically a wounded feminine, and it can show up in lots of different ways, right? So it shows up as perfectionism. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I need to have all my ducks in a row, and I need to make sure I have alphabet soup at the end of my name, and I need to make sure that I have everything absolutely perfect before I ever put anything out into the world, you, my friend, are a Basic Betty. You are a basic biatch. You are acting like a basic biatch. So that is one version, because perfectionism is just a form of procrastination and, in my opinion, self-abuse. Entitlement is another form of basic biatch or basic Betty. So that's like princess mentality. That's like, I don't actually have to work. I just want money to just like fall on my lap, and I don't really actually want to do anything, right? So that's entitlement. Another way that entitlement shows up is if you think you have to be right about everything. If you can't ever be wrong about anything, you are a basic Betty. Now, this person typically struggles to make money, and if they do make money, it comes with a lot of hard knocks. But typically they struggle to make money. There's usually a lot of drama, if not in money, then definitely in their relationships. Always asking for, sometimes they're waiting for a savior to just come in and save the day and whisk them away, or they're always asking for permission. That's another way that the Basic Betty and the Basic Biatch shows up in people's lives. She can also be a people pleaser. Meaning she has very loose boundaries with other people. Blame is huge, right? So blame is one of the ways in which we abdicate taking personal responsibility. Or, on the one hand, she could be waiting for a savior, and on the other hand, she could be the rescuer and going around saving everybody else. So that is Basic Betty, Basic Biatch, and that is stage 1. The way that shows up in business is you have trouble asking for the sale. You're not doing sales activity. You're not promoting. You wait 2 years to get a course out. You wait 3 years to get a sales page out. And you keep taking course after course after course after course, but you're not actually making any progress on anything because you're not actually applying anything. Or you feel like you know everything and you're still not making any progress on anything. So that's the Basic Betty. The next one is Awakening Mama. Right? Now, what's important about Awakening Mama is she starts to realize that the common denominator is her. The issue is her. So in Basic Bitch or Biatch or Basic Betty, there's still a lot of reactivity. There's still a lot of what David Bayer calls being in a primal state. It's very reactive. And then when we get to Awakening Mama, she starts to realize that maybe her reactions are a little too much for the situation at hand. And she starts to take some level of personal responsibility. That's what's important about the awakening mama. She starts becoming more self-aware to negative thoughts, behaviors, patterns, and she commits to changing them. And in business, what this looks like is, I'm not going to be broke anymore. It's time for me to actually make some money. From there, we move into the huntress. Now, the huntress is actually a pretty well-known feminine archetype. I'm a fan of the huntress. So the huntress, she's more assertive. She has better boundaries. She's being more proactive. She actually starts making money. Now, she works very hard and she gives value, and essentially she starts to save herself and she starts to put herself first. Now, here's where things get a little complicated, right? Because sometimes what happens is a lot of women, when they're building businesses, they stay stuck in huntress, and if you're a guy, you're getting stuck in hunter because it's the same, pretty much. Just use the male archetypes. So what happens, right, is if you stay here, you're going to be in a state of perpetual hustling for the rest of your life, and it's unsustainable. So what ends up happening is that we end up going from huntress to what I call boss bitch, right? Now, boss bitch is making money, right? Boss bitch is probably making really good money. I was here for a while. However, she's also running into a lot of problems. There's probably a lot of chaos going on around her because she has not found ways to really receive support in the way that she needs to. She is working way too hard, usually working way too hard, trading time for money. She's very proactive in what she's doing. So this is where you'll see like the 100 DMs a day kind of a thing, which is great for getting a business off the ground. You need to do that and you need to make connections with people, but you can't stay there forever and be a feminine CEO. I mean, most men I know can't stay there forever and be a CEO. She's usually probably very exhausted. This can come with adrenal fatigue and thyroid issues. I've had both. So I'm raising my hand there. And what's interesting here is that she ends up going back into a primal state. Because what ends up happening, right, is you've gotten very good at your huntress, right? And the huntress is making you money. But what happens is that the huntress goes overboard because she doesn't understand how to be a queen or an empress yet. So what ends up happening is you're getting really great results and things are growing really fast, but they're also kind of collapsing on top of you or imploding. And this is where you see a lot of people with burnout. This is also where people go back into a primal state because they've probably been in sustained stress for a long time. So they're going back into those primal states. And what happened to me when I hit this, just in full transparency, the way that this really hit me is that I realized that I'd basically cut off a part of my brain. I'd cut off a part of like consciousness that would allow me to get results to my problems. When I realized that and I realized, whoa, I can't access things like I used to in meditation or whatever, I knew I had a problem. And this is what's happening to a lot of women, right? A lot of women are exhausted because they're running businesses in ways that are not conducive to A, running an actual business, but B, they're not conducive to you as a feminine woman and the way that you operate. So you end up going back into this primal state because now you're making all this money, but there's all these problems that are coming up with it. Or maybe you're trading too much time for money, or maybe you're realizing, as I did, that you're not being properly supported in the way that you need to be, and a lot of stuff is still falling on your shoulders. You go back into a proving energy sometimes, like, oh, I have to prove myself, and this is just something we'll have to deal with forever, but it comes up pretty strong here. Creativity dies at this stage because you're overworking, you've cut off access to a part of consciousness because you've been so stressed for so long that creativity dies. It completely dies. When I was in this stage, I felt like I had no creativity for about 3 years. Zero, none. It just was non-existent because I was exhausted and I couldn't access that part of consciousness. Flow also tends to die. So I said the example of I realized I had a problem when I couldn't necessarily access certain parts of my consciousness in meditation. Synchronicities just were not working out anymore, or if they did work out, I would sabotage. I'm going to get to sabotage. in a second. And what happens is that everything starts becoming a struggle again. It's just in a different way. You may not necessarily be struggling with making money, but maybe you're struggling with keeping money. You may not be struggling with making money, but maybe you're struggling with fulfillment and delivery of what it is that you're trying to do. If you're here, you're in Boss Bitch, and you are exhausted. And my heart goes out to you because I have been there. And this requires some big changes in how you relate to business and life. Now, in my case, I literally burned out and basically lost everything in order to learn this lesson. But the beautiful gift that was coming out of that burnout was actually this diagram, where I was diagramming exactly what I was going through, and now I can share it with you guys. So the next phase is what I call queen in training. Now, a lot of people also use the archetype of queen. I like the queen, but I like something better than the queen, which is why I call it queen in training. So when you're in queen in training, you are starting to move more into what I call just the feminine side of life. Now, what happens here is that you might be scared to do this. So what it shows up in personal growth and personal development is being terrified of letting the feminine start to lead, because that boss bitch, huntress, more masculine side of you, which is so beautiful and so amazing, has been running the show for so long, and you feel safe in that. And when somebody's telling you, hey, you got to start letting go, we got to start working on some infrastructure, we got to change the way that you're making money, you need to do less, then you basically start to freak out. So this is what can happen here. Now, the good news here is that for those of you who can get past the freak out or move through the discomfort of the freak out, and if you need help doing that, that money mindset course will be really helpful for you, or you can join us in Effortless Revenue Mastermind, where we have monthly mindset calls with everyone in the program, and we walk them through this whole process, by the way, in their own businesses. So you start to realize, okay, I have to start doing things in a different way. And some people just stay stuck in the chaos. Some people just insist on staying stuck there. There's lots of reasons for that. I could do a whole other video on self-sabotage and all that. But this is where people will have a tendency to sabotage. Women in particular will sabotage at this stage, because what you're being called to do at this stage is change your business model into something that has more ease and more flow. What you're being called to do is probably raise your prices. What you're being called to do is probably start doing work in a different way. What you're being called to do is step more into your soul's purpose if you would just give yourself the time to actually listen. What you're being called to do at this stage is actually start taking your time and your energy and your desires a lot more seriously. So what I had to do at this stage specifically was I had to completely change the way I was doing business. And this is what happens with most of our clients who go through a process like this. And like I said, men go through something very similar. So if you're a dude and you're watching this, just change it to male archetypes. It's pretty similar. So it's just slightly different and nuanced, but similar enough in business where you can follow along. So when we get here, we're realizing that something needs to change, right? So these changes oftentimes look like letting the feminine lead, which is terrifying for most women who've been in huntress and boss bitch for a long time. Absolutely terrifying to do that because you're afraid everything is going to collapse. And here's the thing, you might make less money for a while. It's true. But that doesn't mean that you're being unsuccessful or unproductive. You're just changing the infrastructure of your business, and you're changing the way that you make money so you can be in more ease and flow moving forward. You're in what to me felt like a void type of period, right? Where you're really just internally changing everything, and then also changing everything in your business at the same time. So what this might look like in business is you might change your business model from doing one-to-one work to doing one-to-many. It might look like starting to use very leveraged forms of marketing instead of forms of marketing that require you to be doing too much work, right? So I'll give examples of what this looks like momentarily. It might look like moving into more high-ticket models. It might look like really spending a lot of time focusing on systems and technology, which are actually quite masculine structures, but then they allow you to be in your feminine down the road. So what's difficult is if you're in this stage of business and you don't have support, what usually ends up happening is you just go backwards. That's typically what happens because you need support in both the way that you're running your business and the way you're operating your business and the way you've built the business, and also in your mindset. As one of my mentors in neuroscience said, it's like a zipper, right? Strategy and mindset. And this is the area where it starts getting very difficult because you're moving out of hustling and you're transitioning into building. Okay, so let's see, what does it look like, right, to get out of one-on-one work and instead of one-to-many? Well, I just did an example on this video. You can buy a money mindset course below. Literal example of how to do that. Or for example, we have group training programs. We've been selling digital courses for a long time. I have a rule in my life that if I have to repeat myself more than once, I'm slapping it on a video and I'm putting it behind a paywall, and the next time somebody asks, here you go. That's my rule. That's one way of doing that. Or it's really about building leverage, right? And starting to leverage your time and take your time a lot more seriously. And then, for example, in marketing, what that might look like is instead of doing those 100 DMs a day, maybe now you do a bigger focus on content. For example, that's what I'm doing now with Mindful Success Path. And I'll get into life purpose and all that stuff in another video and the shift and all that. But that's what we're doing right now. We're making videos to attract people. We're combining creativity, which has come back, with strategy and intuition to create videos that will attract people to us. So essentially we become like what's known as the honeypot, right? So in marketing, there's something known as like the honeypot post, right? This is the honeypot post because it's like attracting bees to honey, which is a much less exhausting way of doing things. And it's also more leveraged because it's more long-term. So that would be an example of doing that. And then the other way in which to do it is to start relying on systems and actual like solid support. So in terms of systems, that could look like technology. In my case, we've automated like 80% of all of our brands. So we started with Make Money Your Honey, which is now transitioning into Mindful Success Path. And we automated most of the sales activity for that. A lot of the sales activity for that just kind of runs on autopilot in the background while I'm doing other things. Or if we look at the Entrepreneur Expat brand, which is really my fiance's brand, but he's the tech guy here, so I will use it as an example. Most of that is automated, right? So as soon as somebody finds the YouTube video and they sign up for some sort of a free gift or something, everything from that point on is basically an automation. That's it, right? So that would be an example of how to do that, which is very opposite from what the huntress or the boss bitch do, where they're in that one-to-one communication. They're in those DMs. They're making like 1,500 social media posts every single week on Facebook that don't even last that long, to be honest, instead of focusing on the things that are leveraged and longer term. And then finally, it's about proper support and team. Now, in my case, this actually turned into really simplifying a lot of things and having less team because technology was doing most of the heavy lifting and most of the work. And in my case, I feel like I kind of won the lottery in a sense because my fiance is also really good at business. So, and I get that masculine perspective and that structure and the technology and the numbers and all from him. Really, a lot of that direction is coming from him. I might have the intuitive, creative hits, but then he's the one who really lays it out, right, into a plan that can be followed because he's very good at that. So that's Queen in Training, right? And it's an interesting transition to be in. If you're in this right now and you need support, definitely make sure to check out our Effortless Revenue Mastermind because that's designed to get you out of this in a year. And then finally, we move into my favorite archetype, right, which is what I call the Empress. Now, to me, and this is just my interpretation of the Empress, this is an archetype that's been around forever, but my interpretation of the Empress is I kind of see her as a combination of the Queen and also the High Priestess into one. That's me. That's my interpretation of it and how it feels to me. So in the Empress, right, when you move in from the personal growth stage, she's definitely in her feminine more often than not, especially in relationships, but that's a whole other topic for another time. She's definitely more in her feminine more often than not. She takes her time and her energy very, very seriously. So for example, she really focuses on, in my view of the Empress, she focuses on the Pareto principle or Pareto principle, which is, 80% of your results from 20% of the activity. So the way that this looks like in my business, for example, is 80% of my time is spent doing stuff on YouTube. That's it. And then that's the honeypot that attracts people from all the different YouTube channels. And that's where most of the time goes. And we have offers and programs that are very structured and easy to follow that people can follow on video. So my effort and is really being spent on the thing that really moves the needle forward. And then I'm not running around ragged because I'm very focused. I'm very focused, and I know which of my tasks bring in the results that I'm looking for. And I only focus on things that are leveraged. Unless it's something very specific or a specific person that I'm trying to reach out to, most of what I do is extremely leveraged because I take my time and my energy very seriously. That's what the Empress does. We don't need to be bogged down by decision fatigue. We don't need to be bogged down by doing tasks that technology can do. We don't need to be bogged down by people who don't support us. We don't need to be in bad rooms. We don't need to be doing any of that. We just need to spend most of our time being the visionary, or being the creative, right? Being a channel essentially for the downloads that we are getting, and then bringing that part out into the world. If you're constantly stuck in hustle mode, it's very difficult to get there. And when you start getting out of the queen in training kind of messiness, like you're cleaning up the boss bitch mess when you're in queen in training, and you move over to empress, that's when things start getting easier. And that's when they really start to shift, because you have a business that operates like an actual business. You have support. You have things that are running 24/7, whether you are working or not, and your time is being spent on your unique gifts when you are the Empress. So those are the 6 stages of more a feminine type of business. Like I said, I've shown this to men, and they go through something similar. In business, they go through something very similar, but internally is where they're going through something a bit different depending on what stage they are in, because they just deal with different things than women do. But in terms of business, they actually go through something quite similar in terms of the transition. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below. Where are you on this diagram? Where are you? And no judgment, because now you know how to move forward. And if you need help in further moving forward on this, definitely make sure to check out that money mindset course below, because I go really deep into this diagram in that money mindset course, and then I teach you how to start rewiring your mind, in this case to start helping you get the results that you need financially in your business. So that will be below. And if you are in if you're in that boss bitch stage that I mentioned and you need help getting out of it, then make sure to check out our Effortless Revenue Mastermind below, because that's exactly what it is designed for. Thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you guys on the next one.